Hello and welcome to McDermott, Wool and Emery's 15th in a series of webinars on current issues facing the power industry. I am Ed Zelke, Global Head of McDermott's Energy Project Finance Practice. And I would like to welcome all of you to our webinar today and hope that you and your families are safe and healthy. Today's topic is Wind Turbine Vendor Update, a conversation with GE Renewable Energy. Joining us today from General Electric will be Ben Stafford, GE's North American Repower and Services Sales Leader, Rob Bieniek, GE's Managing Director for Onshore Wind for the Northeast region, and Matt Lynch, GE's Managing Director for Onshore Wind for the West region. Also joining me to lead the discussion today is my partner and longtime friend Lloyd McNeil, who is with the Project Finance Group here at McDermott. Before we get started, I want to remind the audience that we have a question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. Should you have questions for our panelists, please use that feature to type in a question and we will see if we can get to it either during the half hour that we have for the webinar or afterwards. I also need to let the audience know that communications regarding pricing, markets, market share, or anti-competitive matters are strictly prohibited during the webinar. With that, let's get started. Lloyd, why don't I hand this over to you to start the questioning?
Great, thanks Ed. Ben, Matt, Rob, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. Maybe let's start with topic we've been batting around for the last 4 or 5 months, which is COVID and the coronavirus. I'd like to know, maybe we start with Matt or Rob. To talk about some of the challenges that you have experienced on the supply side, how you've met them, and whether you're seeing that, with the continuation of the crisis, whether you're still facing headwinds, or if you think you've got a handle on the issues. You can start with you, Matt.
Okay. So hey, thanks for having us, and appreciate the opportunity to chat. Like the balance of the whole industry, we've had our dealings with the COVID impacts and the challenges that come with that. But as our business, met this head on, we've also been mindful of everything about even the office nature, social distancing, and so we have been very keen on safety of our people, safety of our site workers, factory, and also safety of our customers and their sites. So that's been forefront in our mind, and we have daily temperature screening at our office locations and beyond, and so we've been all over it with that. And Rob, do you have anything else kind of to add there?
Yeah, no, I would echo the safety of the people are first and foremost. Certainly we've been impacted, I think, from all walks of the supply chain, from sourcing from offshore to transportation to site events, right? So I think one of the questions you asked is, do we have a handle on it? I think we're doing the best we can, like most in the industry. Is it over? I don't think so. We see every day different events popping up, whether it's difficulties with trucking companies finding places to rest for the night, those type of things. Those impact schedule versus our global supply chain. So being vigilant is important. Just the common sense protocols for proper PPE, following CDC guidelines, contact tracing in the event that there is an event at site. We can hopefully contain it and get to it sooner. That's not only us, but that's our partners as far as the project sponsors and their EPC contractors. As you can imagine, at some site there's several hundred people at site. So, daily reminders, over communicating, as simple as it sounds, is very important. It's easy for people to come to site in the morning and know what's going on, and then go home and forget as they relax or over the weekend. So those things have to be kind of reminded on a daily basis. It seems elementary, but it's very important.
Yeah, Lloyd, let me jump in here. I want to echo a couple things that Rob mentioned, up and down the value chain. I think what we've seen is it's a resilient market. It's a resilient space. And that's, it's not just the things that we're doing, but things that our customers are doing and that our subcontractors are doing. and like Rob mentioned, Rob mentioned the stuff we're doing at site, the stuff we're doing in logistics. A couple examples. I mean, for GE, right? For me on the services side, thinking about Repower and about our operations at site. Like for example, are minimizing the group gatherings, but also working in pods, like Rob mentioned. And that may not be, it's not the most efficient way necessarily, and it's certainly a change to how we're operating. But these are the things we're doing to mitigate the potential impacts. Who knows, what is very uncertain and fluid time, right? I think we all understand that. But it's working on those procedures, working with our customers, and Rob's point about increased communications. I mean, I think that is a huge one. Like, there is more communication with our customers. I mentioned our subcontractors, and I'd say even internally within GE than there was before. So we're just much more deliberate in a way to work on mitigating the impacts.
Are the mitigation measures, are they impacting schedule, or are you addressing it up front by setting schedules, particularly Ben on your side on repowering, where you are doing a lot more construction and erection activities than you might otherwise for just sales of new units. Is it something that you're dealing with the developers up front?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're developing, so that's a great point. It's not just increased communication, but it's earlier communication. And sure, like, schedules are going to change, right? When procedures change and requirements change. I mean, it's not, of course, it's not just GE guidelines, but it's CDC guidelines, local, regional requirements. I mean, for example, on a Repower site, if you're working in small pods where typically, or let's just say that in January of this year, before COVID, workers might show up. This goes for actually FSA or services sites too. They might show up in the morning and not know who they were going to work with, or from one week to the next, not know exactly who they're going to work with. That's clearly not happening. We're working with the same people to try to isolate any flare-ups, if you will. But at the same time, at a Repower site, you might have had one team working down tower, doing something entirely different from another team that's working up tower previously. Well, maybe we can't do that anymore, right? And so now that timeline is stretched out. Maybe there's a delay between when those two teams, this is a generic example, but it's real. Those two teams can be in the turbine. Well, that's going to impact the schedule for that turbine, but does it necessarily have to impact the schedule for the project? I mean, those are the things, and that's the heightened communication and coordination that I mentioned earlier. And that, again, it not just impacts our customer, but we need to be coordinated with our subcontractor, and then internally between those teams who may be, working some for GE as commissioners, some for subcontractors, because in Repower we're involved in, a large swath of the value chain there. So those are the types of efforts that we're going through in close coordination with our counterparts.
How does that manifest itself in your discussions, contract negotiations, particularly with the developers and the sponsors? Is it something that you guys are you taking more of a role in or more detail in the contract terms on scheduling? How's that shaken out?
Yeah, I mean, it's as you know, Lloyd, it's each situation is unique, but I would just say that like Matt mentioned, like the entire industry is dealing with the challenges of COVID. So just there were some challenges that may impact one. They may impact only GE, and non-COVID example, but something may just impact one party along that chain. I think what helps the discussion, Lloyd, without getting any details, is that this challenge impacts the whole thing. And so it's very easy. Everyone has the experience. Everybody's feeling it. And so
it's top
the
of mind.
Conversation, exactly. Yeah. Top of mind. And it's just the new kind of terrain or playing field. And so in that, I would just say that has facilitated some of those discussions.
Like, let me jump in for a second. I do want to follow up on kind of COVID is obviously, I'm very proud of how the industry overall has reacted. Although there has been some job losses as a result of the COVID, but I think we have managed to push forward. And a lot of it's been through the efforts that Ben has described by GE and others. Let me switch to Matt for a second. Matt, kind of looking forward, I mean, at some point we're going to get past COVID. We certainly hope so, and we can get back to normal, whatever normal means in the wind industry. What is GE looking at past COVID? 2 years, 5 years, 10 years out? I know that we're starting to run off of the PTC. You guys are looking at we had a very strong 5 years. What do you think the near and midterm future holds for us?
Yeah, so back to what we said in the beginning, resilient. This industry has shown it time and time again. And, thinking at, 2020 installs, 21 installs, a lot of those, independent reports out there that are calling for that 14, 15 gigawatt, we see pretty much the same thing. And then going forward, we have a lot of confidence in this industry. I mean, we've had a great run, as you've seen, with our 2 megawatt platform. I believe, Rob, right? We're going to be close to like 20 gigawatts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. By the end of the year,
By the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, hey, like I said, we have the utmost confidence in, our ability to develop that next technology. And, as you mentioned, hey, when PTC steps down and, everybody has to do their part, right? So, yeah, Rob, what were you gonna?
Yeah, no, I would say, we've seen a lot of confidence in the market. GE's bullish on it, but I think that's a subset of we're responding to what we see in the market. The development activities are increasing. Certainly, there's been some relief with the recent PTC extensions that happened in December to give those folks that had projects that were impacted by the subject we were just talking about, COVID. Given those project developers that extra year to get to COD has certainly been needed and helpful. But then also the extension for an extra 2 years at the 80% level has, I think, kind of fueled a little bit more courage and energy to continue to develop those projects that may have sat on the shelf that couldn't have otherwise foreseen the opportunity to go forward. So those two things alone certainly bring a robust period for us. A lot of activity, interest in safe harbor production, as well as just continue to develop the pipeline. I think if you look at the AWEA data, there's some large amount, like 40 gigawatts of projects in the pipeline under development. That to me signals that, hey, there is a bit broader market out here beyond just this PTC cycle, right? There's no way you could get all that stuff installed in the next 2 to 4 years. So there's a longer vision within our industry to continue to grow.
Thank you. Rob, Ben, before I hand it back to Lloyd, just a same topic on repowering. Other than your iPhone and your laptop that you have to replace, every couple of years, we're getting in the habit of throwing away perfectly good equipment for upgraded stuff. Is repowering seeing the same type of activity?
And I don't, yeah, so I think a lot about Repower, and I would say, I wouldn't characterize it that way. I mean, Repower has been a breathing life into existing sites, and it's a life extension opportunity. It's an opportunity for owners.
Energy enhancement.
Yeah, I mean, there would significant annual energy production improvement, significant reliability improvements, significant benefits in terms of bringing these turbines up to speed, to current day technologies and controls. So it's not Repower is not a like for like replacement. It's a marked improvement. And I think that's bearing out. It's, I think it's being increasingly socialized throughout the market. I think in particular, lately this year, I mean, we'll have repowered, we'll have repowered 6 gigawatts of turbines by the end of this year. And we see that continuing. I mean, on the PTC discussion that Rob mentioned and those extensions, I mean, that is, those are potentially unlocking, like the 2-year extensions, potentially unlocking aging fleets for repower that are going to be more attractive. There also may be turbine types, turbine models. If you have an owner who's got experience with GE 2-megawatt technology and it's proven and reliable, and we have the ability to take, maybe a model they haven't had as much success with, but now to incorporate their proven GE technology that they're comfortable with, and to repower other OEMs turbines with GE equipment. I mean, those are the discussions that are happening right now and that are being increased and accelerated by not just the PTC extension, but just by the socialization of repower in general and the concept of life extension, AEP improvements, O&M and reliability improvements for these wind farms. Because look, owners, you get comfortable with there's a lesson, there's the interconnection agreement and these interconnection queues. Sometimes you don't worry about them as much with repower, right? You're comfortable and your off-taker, your wind regime at a site, your technicians, you want to keep them. There's a lot of value in viewing repower in the sense that it's not, even necessarily fixing a problem, but it's a real enhancement to an already profitable and well-operating asset.
Yeah, the value proposition is you've got a site, like you say, you've got a lot more knowns than you do for greenfield, right? You've got the site is the wind regime, site control, the interconnection point, the balance of plant infrastructure is all known. But Rob, what maybe for some of the developers who are out here listening and who are just maybe thinking about repowering, what are some of the ranges of options that you can do? Like, what's the art of the possible?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, you're putting a larger rotor diameter on that machine, right? So if you add that to 10 years of operational wind data that you've been able to track, and you have a better understanding of what the wind regime at that site is, apply that to a larger rotor, to the structure of the machine, to make sure that with a larger rotor, it's capable, its foundations, its subsystems are good. You're unlocking probably a lot of information and energy yield you really didn't know that you had 10 years prior, right? Not only has the tools to predict wind improved, but you've got a larger database now. You've got 10 years of data. You can look at that and minimize your concerns about what kind of yields are you going to get from the energy itself. And then between larger rotors, improved technology, improved O&M, those are all additive to unlocking more yield at that wind farm.
And Ben, does GE do the engineering work and for the interface between the old components and the new repowered components? Is that GE risk or?
That's right. Well, I mean, yeah, we will marry up our solution with the needs of the site, right? And so, yeah, we are working closely with owners on that. Of course. I mean, Lloyd, to give an example, I mean, we follow the same process that new unit or greenfield sites regarding certification, mechanical loads analysis, technical specifications on repower that we use for greenfield. So for for someone who's familiar with that process on a greenfield site, it's very similar on the repower side. And I mean, there's a number of reasons for that, and one of them is to get owners comfortable. But another, I mean, is in the financing phase, which GE is involved in, and in repower we're involved along the value chain, as I mentioned before, from the equipment, logistics, installation of that equipment, of course, services, but then also financing of those projects. I mean, a bank or tax equity provider is going to want to see, the process that they're familiar with and that same rigor and due diligence in repower that they've seen on the new unit side. And so, we fully appreciate that. And so we marry up our processes so that our counterparts are, comfortable with the solution that's being provided, and what GE is bringing to the table.
Yeah, no, the fact that probably gives a lot of people comfort that they are getting they're getting a component that's backed not just by GE and the warranties, but by certifications, third-party review, and engineering support. Maybe let's one thing that I wanted to come back to before we go ahead is a safe harbor inventory. Do you guys still have some either for the new units or for repowerings? At what PTC levels? If anyone wants to pick up the phone and call you for the rest of your supply.
Yeah, our phone lines are open. Yeah, so we expected last year to be a large PTC market for safe harboring turbines. Probably larger than we would have expected. I think in the past years you had 100%. People went long and were bold. People were a little more conservative at 80%. And last year we saw a large increase in 60% safe harbor, because I think folks look back and they said, hey, we undersized the market for 80%, right? So with the extension late last year to go from 40 to 60% in the new, in this new PTC window, we're expecting a much larger demand, and we're prepared to address it. So yeah, certainly, we always joke that after summer it becomes safe harbor season, where people and investors get serious about making their investments in safe harbor technology, whether it's turbines or components of the like that have been proven along the way. So yeah, we are ready to support that market.
Yeah, and Ben, same goes for repowering as well, right?
Yep. Now I was going to jump in. Same. I'd say the same thing for Repower. Phone lines are open. And another thing that Repower, the safe harbor, just one point I want to make is, what we're seeing is, so if a customer wants to repower a site and they have Repower equipment specific for that solution, or that works with that solution, then that's great. Like, so for example, putting a GE rotor or drivetrain on a GE turbine makes a lot of sense to repower. But we are seeing and are able to work with the use of new unit safe harbor equipment to qualify repower projects, right? Naturally, putting a couple of full units and installing them at a site that's being repowered may not be the most efficient use of that equipment. Well, it may be, but there may be a couple permitting challenges or some inefficiencies in the system there, but it's certainly being done. And so if someone has, maybe an owner's not efficiently utilizing all of their previous safe harbor volume purchase, but they're looking at now, I'd say increasingly, how do we, not just other new unit projects they could qualify, but if they have, can they break up that new unit safe harbor volume into enabling both new unit and repower projects?
So a couple of audience questions have came in, and it dovetails with one of the questions that I wanted to ask you folks about as well. And that's, you mentioned, Rob, the components essentially are larger rotor diameters. Do you see that trend continuing? What's in the hopper? Or are we going to see even larger diameters in the near future?
Yeah, I certainly. That's the easiest way to increase your NCF. So, GE, we even see it in general in the industry. You see machines getting bigger, right? Larger rotors. GE's, also part of that, right? So you've looked at it. If you look back at our old fleet, you went from a 77 meter rotor diameter to 100 meter to 107 and 116 and 127. So you can see the trajectory we're on for increased rotor diameters. The challenge becomes you get to a point where logistics becomes an issue, right? So now you have to take that next leap in technology and say, well, how do I deliver a longer blade cost effectively, right? So there's new technologies to go around and do that. So that's kind of what I think will yield more energy at probably better installed costs in the future.
Yeah. See, like a baby. Go ahead, Ed.
Matt mentioned you guys looked at 20,000. Was it you say 20,000 units of the GE platform on land machines? Are you going to move to? Is there another platform in the hopper? Are you moving off your current to something larger? Are you going to go to the 3 or to a 5? Are we going to see something different in the next few years?
Yeah, Matt, I'll take it at first. Yeah, so, we have announced there's a Cypress platform that we call, and it's a much larger machine. It's a 5+ megawatt machine and a 158 meter rotor. That market we've kind of focused that product predominantly in the European and 50 hertz markets, it's been met pretty successfully. So that larger platform eventually will find its way to North America, but my primary focus right now and the success rate we've had with it in Latin America, Europe, Australia, has been pretty good. So to answer your question, yeah, there'll definitely be larger rotor diameter and larger machines coming to North America.
Yeah, and so that's the larger nameplate, larger rotor, and then back on our 2 megawatt platform, the 116 and the 127. Going back to what I mentioned earlier, that's a 20 gigawatt install base here when we look at towards the end of the year. And there will be evolutions to that, what we call megawatt constrained segment, and a growth in time of that rotor and nameplate. So the team is working on it now.
Hey, and if I can jump in here too on the Repower side in that same vein, add to that question is, of course, it's larger rotors. Continue to look at that as we move along in time. For GE units specifically, we have other fleets of GE turbines that are coming into the age for they are potential repower candidates, right? So the solutions are naturally going to change, but that's the evolution of the repower market as we see it, and we don't see it going away. The other trend is, as I mentioned earlier, is non-GE equipment. And focusing with our customers on repowering non-GE turbines with GE equipment is in the trend, certainly.
Yeah, and that's a good segue to the service side. How is the repowering business changing your service contracts scope, length of term? Where are you seeing that market?
Yeah, I would say just in general, Lloyd, I mean, terms are not just for repower, but terms are increasing in length, certainly, for a number of reasons. I mean, we work with each, on each deal to make the project as happy and sound as we can, right? And increasingly that is a longer term services agreement from the O&M, both on the new unit and repower side. I mean, on repower, I'd say that there may be an element to, at least initially it was less tested, right, earlier on. So maybe they wanted more of a longer term from GE. But we of course have confidence in our product. This is all technology that it's GE tried and true technology that we're putting on, and we've improved and learned about over thousands and thousands of operating hours. So the term is extending. I think, how is repower impacting it? I'm not, that's a good question. I just think what I'd say the general trend, again, outside of repower, is increasing alignment of the services offerings that we provide with our customers and projects needs.
Yeah.
Right? So
Ben, I would compliment that. I don't think it's necessarily repower related, but the industry itself is either looking for longer term contracts, but also more customization. So, I think GE's recognized that and tried to provide more flexible offerings for customers, whether it's a shared scope or a longer term, or some different mechanisms of revenue recognition and sharing.
That's right. Sharing, and revenue. It's exactly right, Rob. And I think that increased creativity and customization is indicative of a maturing space, right? And so I think that's a good thing. I think that's a natural progression. I think it's the right way to go, because all of us want win projects to happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so on the service side, flexibility and creativity on sounds like term pricing, but also revenue and risk sharing.
Yeah, there is some of that, right? Some variable structures, discussions over, revenues. Yeah, Lloyd, it's certainly going in that direction.
Yeah. It's aligning everyone's incentives, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Sure, GE wants to get paid, but if the developer isn't successful in their financial model, then no one is successful. So we have to work together, right? If one of us wins, we all should win together.
Right, right. And are you seeing any other challenges on, as capacity factors go up, for instance, the turbines are working harder and more, longer. How's that impacting, like warranty scope and what you're willing to offer in terms of service platform?
Lloyd, I'd just say, I just would get back to the previous question. I mean, it's I just see increasing alignment. If there's and it's each project is unique, but not seeing any specific issues to what you mentioned there on increasing capacity factors and material impacts on the services.
Great. Ed, I think we're a minute or two over. I don't know if you want any final comments or questions, thoughts.
No, we are just a little bit over our time. It sounds like an opportunity to be creative and talk to the GE folks about their full service agreements, maybe in the future. So it's all good to hear. All great information, and keep up the good work for both for GE and the rest of the industry. We are out of time. I do, on behalf of Lloyd and myself, I want to thank Ben Stafford, Matt Lynch, and Rob Bieniek from GE for being our guests today. We will wrap this up here and remind our audience that we will be having our next webinar on August 13th. And until then, stay safe, and we will see you in August.